You can lose weight, watch the scale drop, fit into smaller clothes, and still carry one of the most dangerous forms of fat inside your body. And most people never realize it's there. Because belly fat isn't just what you see in the mirror. There is another type of fat hiding deeper inside your abdomen. It wraps itself around your liver, your pancreas, your stomach, and your intestines. This fat is called visceral fat. And unlike the fat under your skin, visceral fat behaves more like an active organ than simple storage. It constantly releases inflammatory chemicals. It interferes with your metabolism. It disrupts how your body controls blood sugar. And over time, it quietly drives conditions like diabetes, fatty liver disease, heart disease, and even certain cancers. Now here's the part that shocks many people. You can appear healthy on the outside while visceral fat is actively damaging your internal organs. But here is the good news. And this is where things get interesting. Visceral fat is often the first fat your body is willing to burn if you send it the right biological signals. And most people are sending the exact opposite signals every single day without realizing it. By the end of this video, you'll understand what actually triggers visceral fat storage, why traditional fat loss methods often miss it completely, and the scientifically backed strategies that can target it faster than most people expect. Quick disclaimer before we continue. This information is for education only and is not a substitute for medical advice or treatment from a qualified professional. Now let's start with the hidden reason visceral fat grows in the first place. Visceral fat is strongly linked to something called metabolic stress. This happens when the body experiences chronic inflammation, excess energy overload, and cellular damage from unstable molecules known as free radicals. When these forces combine, they create a perfect environment for fat to accumulate around vital organs. And this is where nutrition becomes far more powerful than most people realize. There is a special group of compounds in plant foods that directly interrupt this fat-building cycle. They are called carotenoids. You have seen carotenoids your entire life, even if you've never heard the name before. They are the natural pigments responsible for the orange color in carrots, the deep red in tomatoes, and the dark green in spinach. But the real magic of carotenoids happens at the cellular level. Carotenoids act as powerful antioxidants. They neutralize free radicals before those molecules can damage tissues and trigger inflammation. When inflammation drops, the body starts restoring its natural fat-burning balance. But here is where it gets even more fascinating. Carotenoids don't just protect cells. Research shows they influence gene activity linked to fat metabolism. They help activate fat-burning pathways while calming down signals that encourage fat storage, especially around internal organs. In controlled human studies, participants who increased their intake of carotenoid-rich vegetables experienced noticeable reductions in visceral fat within just weeks. And what surprised researchers most was that these improvements happened even without aggressive dieting. That means the body wasn't just losing fat from calorie restriction. It was responding to improved metabolic signaling. And this leads to a simple but extremely powerful strategy. The more color diversity you add to your meals, the more protective compounds your body receives. Carrots, sweet potatoes, spinach, pumpkin, red peppers, tomatoes, and leafy greens are all excellent sources. When you consistently rotate these foods, you give your body the tools it needs to push back against visceral fat storage. But carotenoids are only the first layer of the solution. There is another compound group that changes how your body uses fat as fuel. And this is where metabolism can shift dramatically. These compounds are called catechins. Catechins are highly concentrated in green tea, and yes, green tea has a reputation for fat loss, but most people don't understand why it works. Catechins increase fat oxidation, which means they help your body convert stored fat into usable energy. They also slightly raise energy expenditure and slow down enzymes that help your body absorb dietary fat. And here is the powerful twist. Green tea naturally contains caffeine. When caffeine combines with catechins, the two compounds amplify each other's metabolic effects. This creates a stronger fat-mobilizing signal, especially in abdominal fat deposits. Clinical trials consistently show that individuals who drink catechin-rich green tea regularly experience measurable reductions in visceral fat over time. Less processed green teas, like matcha or traditional brewed green tea, typically contain higher levels of these beneficial compounds. But now we need to address a major misconception that prevents many people from losing visceral fat. Yes, calorie control matters, but calorie control alone is not enough to target visceral fat efficiently. The quality of metabolic signals your body receives determines how quickly that fat responds. And this is where the second half of the solution becomes a game changer: exercise. But not just exercise for burning calories, exercise that directly attacks visceral fat. Research repeatedly shows something fascinating. Diet tends to reduce overall body weight more dramatically, but exercise often has a stronger effect specifically on visceral fat reduction. There was one particularly revealing study where participants exercised only twice per week at moderate intensity. After just 2 months, visceral fat dropped by nearly half. At the same time, insulin sensitivity improved significantly, and overall metabolic health markers improved, even though total body weight barely changed. And this reveals one of the most important truths about fat loss. The scale can lie. Your weight may stay stable while your internal fat and metabolic health improve dramatically. Many people quit too early because they rely only on scale measurements instead of understanding body composition changes. Now let's talk about the type of exercise that produces the strongest visceral fat response. Large research reviews analyzing dozens of controlled trials show that both continuous aerobic exercise and high-intensity interval training are highly effective. Resistance training remains extremely valuable for muscle preservation and metabolic health, but aerobic movement tends to produce faster visceral fat reduction. Another powerful discovery from exercise research is something called the dose-response effect. The more consistent your activity level becomes, the greater the visceral fat reduction tends to be. This progressive improvement rarely happens with aggressive dieting alone. Extreme calorie restriction often reaches a plateau, but physical activity continues to produce metabolic benefits over time. This leads to a strategy that is both effective and sustainable. Instead of extreme dieting, maintaining a small calorie deficit while gradually increasing physical activity produces more reliable visceral fat reduction and better long-term metabolic stability. Most evidence suggests that exercising 2 to 3 times per week for about 45 minutes at moderate to vigorous intensity creates measurable improvements. If you don't track heart rate, there is a simple way to judge intensity. If you can talk but sound slightly breathless, you are likely in the correct range to stimulate visceral fat reduction. And here is the final truth that determines whether these strategies succeed or fail. Consistency always beats perfection. The exercise routine you enjoy and repeat regularly will outperform the perfect program you abandon after 2 weeks. When metabolically supportive nutrition combines with consistent aerobic movement, your body receives a powerful signal to reduce internal fat storage and restore balance. And once visceral fat begins to drop, improvements often appear across multiple systems: blood sugar control, liver function, cardiovascular health, and overall energy regulation. If this video helped you understand fat loss from a deeper biological perspective, consider subscribing to Eat Well, Thrive Well for more science-backed nutrition and wellness strategies. And in the next video, we're going to explore specific nighttime habits and foods that support liver detoxification and overnight fat metabolism, something most people completely overlook.